All right, so I got to sound off on this whole Jake Paul thing. I see a lot of people in boxing, from promoters to managers to media members to fighters themselves, shitting on Jake Paul because he's fighting MMA fighters and basketball players. Which, okay, we know it's not real boxing per se, right? But why are we getting mad at Jake Paul? I mean, in quote unquote real boxing, the face of boxing, who you guys call the guy that you call the face of boxing, Canelo Alvarez, he ducks and avoids the best fighter in his weight class, and you guys are okay with it. You got Earl Spencer, Terrence Crawford, who won't fight because of money. You got Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, who are taking ages to announce a fight. Pretty much every weight class aside from super flyweight takes forever to make fights happen. So you can't get mad at the guy who's making fights happen, who's entertaining, and who's marketing himself. He's marketing himself, and he's done that with his big platform on YouTube. And for years, I remember for years in my YouTube videos, I would say things like in 2015, 2016, 2017, I would say, hey, fighters got to understand the marketing side of boxing to market themselves, to promote themselves. And there'd be times where I would tell fighters this to their face, and I would say, hey, you should do this because it would be beneficial to your career. It'd be more advantageous to your career. And then their response to me would be like, some fighters, I'm not going to name them, but some fighters would say, oh, well, you don't know anything because you're not in the professional fight game. So I said, okay, no problem. What do I know? Here comes Jake Paul proving everything I said right. And now you got fighters getting mad at him with this whole crabs in a barrel mentality. And it's like, that wouldn't happen if promoters stopped being lazy and if fighters themselves outside of the ring put the time in to actually promote themselves. It's a new day and age. This is not the 90s. It's not the early 2000s. This is not even 2010. You have to promote yourself. So that's just a day and age we're living in. And this is exactly why when you get fighters in boxing with big names, such as a Canelo, and they don't want to fight people, and y'all give them a pass, and that goes for any other fighter in boxing, these are the ripple effects of it. When you got PBC on a unified front trying to duck Terrence Crawford, none of the welterweights want to fight Terrence Crawford, this is what happens. When you get, all these fights that get delayed, this is what happens. So I'm not mad at Jake Paul. I'm not mad at Triller. I actually like what they're doing. I like what they're bringing to boxing. Even though people are going to criticize it, I like what they're doing because they're at least trying to do something different to get people to watch the sport. They thought outside the box, which I like, And I can never, you can't get mad at Jake Paul for exploiting a system that was already in place, for exploiting a sport that had so many flaws in the business side that allowed him to do what he's doing. So God bless Jake Paul. Get your bag and fuck it. He the face of boxing because he's smashing the box office. I think a lot of fighters in boxing should thank Jake Paul because he's brought so much attention to the sport that wasn't there before. People that don't normally watch boxing are watching boxing now. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've met kids here in South Florida at gyms who just started boxing because of Jake Paul. And if Jake Paul was someone that wasn't taking the sport serious, if he was someone that was disrespecting, the sport and the top fighters in the sport, I would have a problem with Jake Paul. But he seems to be educating himself on boxing. If you listen to when he talks about fighters and things going on in the sport, he knows what he's talking about. So I think Jake Paul's a great ambassador for boxing. And if you're hitting on Jake Paul, then you're a sad individual. In my opinion, if you're hitting on Jake Paul, you are a sad individual with a crabs in a barrel mentality. So just get rid of that mentality. An example of Jake Paul being good for boxing is just last night. Regis Prograis, a guy that is not a big name in boxing, he's known amongst hardcore boxing fans, but he's not like a mega star. He got to fight on that card. He fought Ivan Redkach, a guy that's really at welterweight, a nobody, a stay busy opponent. And he made $860,000 to fight Ivan Redkach. So there's no way in hell you can tell me Jake Paul isn't good for boxing because he's putting a lot of bread in his fighters' pockets just by them fighting on his undercard. So I'm sure if you ask Regis, he's happy about. He loves Jake Paul, So that's what it is, man. You fighters out there that are calling out Jake Paul because you're upset that he's a disgrace to the sport, you're mad at the wrong guy. Be mad at your local commissions commissions, sanctioning bodies, that have been allowing so much fuckery in boxing. Get mad at managers who don't do shit for fighters. Get mad at promoters who put fighters on the shelves and don't make big fights happen. And listen, a lot of you fighters out there who want to shit on who Jake Paul's fighting, get off of your high horse. Get off of your high horse. I know hella fighters on here. Some of you probably watching the story. I know hella fighters in America and in the UK. You guys are you guys? Let's be real. A lot of you guys out here on Instagram who are flexing your W's in your posts. We know that the guys that you're fighting aren't much better than the guys Jake Paul's fighting, and that goes for anybody in boxing who's 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. What like? Excuse my language, but like, what the fuck is the difference between Jake Paul fighting Ben Askren and Gibb and Nate Robinson, guys who aren't that good at boxing? What's so different between that and fighters here in America or in the UK fighting, nobodies in Mexico or Colombia or all over England, or just mismatches in general? There is no difference. But in fact, there is a difference, and I'll tell you exactly what the difference is. I'm gonna tell you exactly what it is. The difference between what you guys are doing, fighting nobodies in your second, third fight, versus what Jake Paul is doing in his second and third fight, is that when you fought your second and third fight, people don't really care about your second and third fight because you didn't put in the work to promote yourself, to have awareness about who it is you are in boxing. Jake Paul, on the other hand, he's fighting bums in the second and third fight, and the whole world is watching him. So that's the only difference. And it goes back to that crabs in the barrel mentality that we have in boxing with a lot of fighters. It's like, oh well, if I can't be successful in boxing, and if I can't get it, then nobody can be successful. No, man, absolutely not. No, like stop hating on the next man's success. Be happy, be appreciative of Jake Paul's success, and try to learn from him and take what he's done and implement it into your own career. And you might actually find that you might actually find some success for yourself. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I got videos to edit. I'm pulling an all-nighter. Y'all have a blessed night. God bless. One last thing. Everything I'm saying, I didn't always believe. All right. I didn't always like Jake Paul. I was just like a lot of y'all. I was just, fuck Jake Paul. He's bad for boxing. I hope, he gets knocked out and severely injured so they stop this YouTube boxing shit. That was me. I've said this on video before, so I'm not, but at the same time, I've seen reason to change. I've seen reason to change my stance. So this is not coming from somebody who always has liked Jake Paul. This is coming from your boy BT, Brendan Taylor, the untouchable True School Sports Empire, someone who loves the sport of boxing. I am a hardcore boxing fan. I am the most boxing purist, hardcore boxing fan you'll probably ever meet. So take that into account when I'm saying these things.